So today we're in the company of Bob Cohen and Peg or Peggy.
Actually, it's Marguerite.
Oh, Margaret Cohen.
But Peg.
Peg.
Will do.
Okay. We're here in another testimony of Testimony TV to listen to two extraordinary individuals give their extraordinary testimony of an extraordinary life. But before we get into it, you just have to tell the world of how long you've been united. You told me when I came in.
Yes. We've been married 58 years.
58 years. It
Yes.
still can happen out there for someone. It
Yes.
still can happen and still exists. They're not from Mars.
And it's still very good.
Fabulous, fabulous. Bob, go ahead, introduce yourself to the world, introduce your wife to the world, or whether she wants you to do it, or she do it on her own, and then let's get started.
Well, my name is Robert S. Cohen. Everyone knows me as Bob Cohen. Born originally in New Jersey, where I lived for about 15 years. Then moved across the Delaware River into Pennsylvania, where I lived for 55 years. We moved to Florida about 13 years ago. So that's my geography. I guess the essential reason for this interview is because of my recent medical history. I was diagnosed, and I'll tell you about that in a moment, with glioblastoma, which is a very nasty brain cancer. The usual life expectancy is 14 months. I was stricken in December 2014. So I'm 3 years and a couple months past that. I was diagnosed. I had a seizure that was the beginning of my medical situation, related and changed into having surgery, chemo, radiation. There was intensive chemo for 42 straight days, 31 radiations. That's after the surgery. The surgery took out a tumor. They removed the tumor about the size of a walnut. After the initial radiation, chemo, and surgery, I was on a program for a year in a 28-day cycle, of which 5 of those days were I had intensive chemo, and then 23 days without any treatment. And then after that year, I essentially was considered cancer-free, but because of the nature of this cancer, the glioblastoma, I was being observed with an MRI and a neurological evaluation every 2 months at the Duke Brain Center. In total, that's called the Preston Robert Brain Tumor Center at Duke. Preston Robert Tisch Brain Tumor Center at Duke. Our local oncologist, who belongs to the largest oncology practice in Florida, who was the first person to see me after the surgery said, even though we have cancer centers in Florida, on the East Coast there's 2 places for this particular cancer. One is Duke in Raleigh or Durham, North Carolina, and the other is Dana-Farber in Boston. So I opted for Duke, which I've been going since then. Once I got to the situation where I was without any sign of cancer, which was almost 2 years, I would have an MRI every 2 months, a neurological evaluation every 2 months at Duke. And my last visit, which was in December 2017, the cancer reappeared, essentially in the same spot where it was originally discovered. And so I'm back on chemo since December 6, 2017. The chemo for this particular cancer is a capsule taken once a day at bedtime on an empty stomach. And that's where I am right now. It's as this is being taped and this interview happening.
The programs that you have been a part of, are they standard? Were they experimental?
Well, by the way, the Duke Brain Tumor Center was established in 1939. So it's a long-term program. If you can have the surgery, which I had, in which the surgeons said they were able to take out 98 to 99% of the tumor, is followed by a boilerplate treatment, as I understand it, of the radiation chemo after the surgery. But down the road, if this becomes more complicated, the cancer comes back, there are some other options. On the show 60 Minutes, the Duke Brain Center has been featured twice for a treatment of the glioblastoma. And if it comes to pass that I need more extensive treatment that I'm now ongoing and I'm at the beginning, it's only 2 months that I'm on this new chemo regimen, there are other options. And there are trials happening. One that's known, the Duke, one of the Duke trials involves a polio virus with a segment of the common cold virus. And I may or may not be able to have that treatment if the cancer continues or if it grows, because of its location near one of the ventricles in the brain, without going into the anatomy and biology of that. So it depends on how the cancer might grow. After my first 2 months with this recent bout of the cancer, the new tumor stayed essentially the same, grew maybe a millimeter, which is nothing, because I've been told and informed that this cancer can double in every 2 or 3 weeks. So my next visit is at the beginning of April 2018. My last visit was at the very end of January 2018. And we'll see what happens. But the prognosis for treatment at this time is that I will be on this chemo for 6 to 12 months. And we live in Florida, in Wellington, Florida, which is near West Palm Beach. So we need to fly up to Raleigh, Durham.
Peggy,
Mm-hmm.
how, with this ordeal, you keep the family and everything together? And what's the strain on you? Because 58 years, no one in their sleep thinks Bob is in it by himself. Give us your perspective of being beside him, and even though he's diagnosed, the effect on the partner for 58 years, the spouse, the mother, everything.
Well, in the beginning, when Bob was first diagnosed, it was a real trauma. You know, he had no symptoms before his first bout with the seizures. Very, very traumatic. We're very fortunate in one respect. My son is a doctor, and he flew in to help me through some of that. But the initial diagnosis is very, very difficult. Not only on me, but fortunately, we have a very large, loving family. So it was hard on everyone. Since we've been going down this journey, if you want to call it that, I right now feel very, very fortunate that Bob has done so well. I do see changes. He's extremely bright, and I do see some changes, which he's a little slower in conversations and things than he ever was. But he is an amazing guy. He exercises. He tries hard to keep himself well. But it is difficult because you just don't know from one visit to the next how things are going. So, but again, we sort of take care of each other, and that really works well because we're very close. And again, we have a terrific family and community support. I think your support system is so important.
I'm going to ask a question that came in my spirit a while ago. In these situations, and I'm going to ask an individual answer. You being the man who's wearing the shoes, you being the person who just so happened to be in the next foot of the shoes, so you can't be but to be in it. How much could you even imagine going through this ordeal without being in a loving relationship? What do you think? How much do you think the impact of being in a solid relationship, in a loving relationship, helps, in a supportive relationship, and those people who don't have what you have?
Well, we're in an age group where we're both at this time age 78, and less than a year and a half we're going to turn age 80, which is a big marker. I had a aunt and uncle who lived in our area. They were also from New Jersey, moved down here to retire, and they both have passed away, but they had medical issues to deal with, and they said they have assisted living. He assists her, and she assists him. And that's sort of what we do in terms of taking care of each other, in terms of our relationship. When you get to our age, there's a lot of bumps in the road that happen. And you stop certain activities and fill that time with doctor visits?